I never believed that 2 decades of marriage could unravel in a single night. 2 decades of shared laughter, whispered dreams, and promises that felt unbreakable, gone in the time it took to read one secret message. The moment I found out about her betrayal, it felt as though someone had cracked my chest open and pulled my heart right out. But before I dive into the gut-wrenching details of how everything crumbled, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button and stay with me until the end, because this story is about more than just heartbreak. It's about learning the hard way that sometimes the ones closest to us are the ones who cut the deepest. My name is Daniel, and for the past 20 years, I believed I was married to my soulmate, Abigail. When we first met, we were just two college kids chasing big dreams. I was a starry-eyed political science major, convinced I'd someday make a difference in the world. She was an art student who could see beauty in places most of us overlooked: a brick wall, a broken vase, or the swirl of cream in a cup of coffee. We bonded over our love for midnight movies and cheap pizza. She'd doodle cartoons of us on napkins, leaving them in my backpack with little notes that said, "Can't wait to see you tonight." Our relationship felt so pure then, as if we were existing in our own small world of inside jokes and shared hopes. Not long after we graduated, I proposed to her in our favorite park, under the old oak tree where we once slow danced to a song playing on someone's boombox. She cried, I cried. We thought we had it all figured out. The wedding was modest but perfect. Our families and close friends gathered in a backyard decorated with handmade lanterns, and the day felt like a fairy tale. She wore a simple white dress with lace sleeves, nothing extravagant, but stunning nonetheless. I remember thinking, I am the luckiest man alive. And for a long time that felt true. Over the years, we faced challenges like any couple does: job changes, a few failed business ventures, a mortgage that loomed over us like a rain cloud. We had arguments, some petty, others more serious, but every time, we found our way back to each other. We made a life together in a cozy house on a tree-lined street, collecting memories in the form of photographs, souvenirs from weekend trips, and the marks on our dining room wall measuring our kids' growth spurts. Around our 20th anniversary, something shifted. It was subtle at first, easy to dismiss. Abigail started working late more often, claiming that her gallery job demanded more of her time. Her once excited chatter about upcoming art exhibits dwindled. She'd walk in the door drained, heading straight to the shower without so much as a hello kiss. I put an arm around her once and asked if everything was okay. She just gave me a tight smile and said, "Just tired. It's been a long day." I tried to support her. I offered to cook more often, to handle the kids' school runs, to give her space if she needed it. But the more I tried, the more she seemed to pull away. She'd glance at her phone during dinner, her thumb hovering over the lock screen as if waiting for something or someone. When I asked about the messages, she'd shrug and mention a coworker texting about a project. The real suspicion started gnawing at me on a weekend. She said she had to go to a gallery networking event 2 towns over. Normally, I'd have gone with her, or at least she would have invited me. But this time, she insisted I stay home with the kids. She left in a rush, wearing a dress I hadn't seen before, sleek, black, more alluring than her usual bohemian prints. It felt off. I brushed away the doubts, telling myself I was overthinking it. But the sense of unease grew when she returned hours later, eyes glazed and distant. She didn't even notice the kids had stayed up past bedtime, nor did she comment on the dinner I'd carefully prepared. It was a random Thursday evening when everything imploded. Our kids were off at a friend's place for a sleepover. Abigail was in the shower. Her phone pinged on the kitchen counter. I glanced at it out of habit. Sometimes the gallery owner texted about scheduling changes. This time, though, the message preview read something undeniably personal. "Can't stop thinking about last night. You looked so beautiful." My blood turned to ice. For a moment, I couldn't move. That one line echoed in my mind, drowning out everything else. With trembling hands, I picked up her phone. Normally, it was password protected, but she must have unlocked it earlier. My gut churned as I tapped on the messaging app. The thread was heartbreakingly clear. Texts full of endearments, talk of stolen moments, references to a hotel booked in the next city over. She'd been meeting this person, a coworker, an artist, or maybe a random businessman I didn't know yet. All I knew was that my wife of 20 years had a secret life I'd never suspected. I felt physically ill, like someone had punched me in the stomach. Memories of our 2 decades together flashed through my mind. Our wedding day, the births of our children, the time we danced in the kitchen to no music. How could she do this?
Why?
Questions ricocheted in my head, but there were no answers to be found in that phone. When she stepped out of the shower, she found me standing in the living room, her phone in my hand, tears blazing in my eyes. She took one look at my face and knew. There was no denying it. The messages were spelled out in black and white. What did you see? She stammered, voice shaking. All of it, I whispered, voice hollow. Everything. She tried to explain, stuttering about how she never meant to hurt me, that it just happened, that she felt unfulfilled and had been searching for something new. The excuses blurred together into a haze of betrayal. She said the affair had been going on for a few months, that it was intense but complicated, that she didn't know how to stop. Each sentence hammered another nail into the coffin of our marriage. I wanted to scream at her, to rage, to demand she tell me how she could throw away 20 years of our life so casually. But I couldn't find my voice. My hands shook uncontrollably, and all I managed was a whisper. Why didn't you talk to me? Why did you? She broke down sobbing, repeating, I'm sorry, like it was some magic spell that could undo the damage. I stood there, paralyzed by a mix of grief, anger, and a profound sense of loss. It felt like the walls of our home were closing in, suffocating me with all the memories we'd once cherished. And the days following her confession, I tried to make sense of our entire relationship. Was everything a lie? Had she been unhappy for years, and I just never noticed? Friends and family had always seen us as the perfect couple, the ones who survived the storms and came out stronger. But behind that facade, cracks had been forming for who knows how long. I suggested counseling, not because I was sure I wanted to forgive her, but because I needed clarity. She hesitated, but eventually agreed. The therapist's office became a battleground of accusations, tears, and revelations. She confessed that she felt invisible, that she was tired of being someone's wife and someone's mother, that she craved excitement and freedom. Her words stung. All those times I asked her if she was okay, she lied. One day, she told me the affair partner's name, Christian, a photographer who traveled a lot for projects. They'd met at her gallery. He was adventurous, always on the go, and apparently made her feel alive. My stomach churned every time she uttered his name. Eventually, I realized that no amount of therapy was going to patch up the gaping wound. She said she was sorry, but I couldn't shake the image of those texts, the words, "You looked so beautiful," repeating like a broken record in my mind. I'd replay the scenario of her sneaking off to meet him, lying to my face, while I stayed home with our kids, believing she was just a devoted wife and mother with a stressful job. We tried to keep things civil for the children's sake, but the tension at home was unbearable. Every conversation turned into a minefield of what-ifs and blame. My love for her, once so deep and certain, was rotting under the weight of betrayal. And so, one evening, as we sat in the living room, I told her I wanted a divorce.
She didn't argue.
She just nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks, eyes vacant like she'd known all along this was inevitable. It all happened fast after that, faster than I imagined possible for a 20-year marriage. Within weeks, we had lawyers, we divided assets, and we sorted out a custody schedule for the kids. The night we told our children we were divorcing was one of the worst moments of my life. They cried, begging to understand why we couldn't work it out. I couldn't tell them the truth about their mother's affair. They were too young, and I refused to poison their relationship with her. I moved out to a small apartment with beige walls and a view of a parking lot. It was nothing like our cozy house with a backyard swing. In the first few weeks alone, I felt lost, like I was stuck in some nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Our wedding photos, once proudly displayed, got shoved into a box I couldn't bear to open. Over time, though the numbness shifted into determination. I threw myself into my work, into rebuilding myself from the ground up. I started going to the gym, not to numb my pain, but to find a healthier way to cope. My kids visited on weekends, and we made the most of our time together: movie nights, board games, visits to the local park. Little by little, I remembered how to smile again, even if the scars of betrayal still ached. There's a unique kind of ache that comes from discovering the person you've loved for half your life has secretly been carving out a new path without you. In one heartbreaking moment, the foundation we'd built for 20 years crumbled under her hidden betrayal. Sometimes, I wonder if she ever truly loved me the way I loved her, if those early years of wonder and promise were as real to her as they were to me. Maybe I'll never have a satisfying answer. What I do know is that even though her betrayal destroyed our marriage, it didn't destroy me. I've learned that people change, sometimes in ways we can't predict or prevent. Love, no matter how deep or long-lasting, can't always shield us from deceit. Yet here I am, on the other side of this devastation, discovering that I'm stronger and more resilient than I ever imagined. If you've stuck with me through this entire story, thank you. It hasn't been easy to relive the memories and raw emotions tied to that night and the confessions that followed. But if there's one takeaway, let it be this: never ignore the small signs. If your gut tells you something is wrong, pay attention. And if it turns out your worst fears are true, remember that you can still find a life beyond the betrayal, one where you honor your own worth. Don't forget to hit subscribe if you want more stories about real people facing the toughest moments of their lives and finding a way through. Because at the end of the day, we all deserve a chance to heal, to stand back up, and to keep moving forward, no matter how long it took for everything to fall apart.